friends.
Hi, everybody.
Ciao.
We're on stage. We're live.
Let's do this.
Hello, beautiful SparkToro community. We missed you. It's been a while.
It has been a while.
It's been a while.
Yeah. Amanda,
All
how's my
right.
sound?
Your sound is beautiful.
It's good? Okay, great.
It's almost as beautiful as your sweater.
This sweater is keeping me going.
Do you
Brad,
like my sweater?
I do like that, actually. I love the gradient is a nice look. How long do you think before someone asks us if the presentation will be recorded?
Oh, is it going to be recorded? Tommy, are you recording this?
It's already happened. Somebody's already. Yeah.
Oh.
Right on time. It looks like it's already recording.
It
happened
is. It is
while
recording.
Maybe Barron's heard me say that and then typed it out real fast. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know which one came first.
Jinx. Okay.
Oh, yeah, Rodney.
Rodney.
Can we perhaps record that?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I think we can record this. Okay, it is recording right now, and this recording will be available as soon as the event is done. So if you want to replay this immediately when we're done here, just refresh your browser. It will be there, and our beautiful faces will also be there. You can count on them.
And if you're not here right now, then you'll be able to see it afterwards, right? Shout out to the async people.
That too.
I mean, if you're not here right now, how would you know that? Anyway, I believe Amanda will send an email to everyone who registered, which will have the link, and it will be eventually on SparkToro in the on the office hours page as well, so you can find it there.
Yeah, and then probably in a couple weeks, this will be on YouTube as well. If our YouTube intern can get it together. The YouTube intern is me. I am the intern.
I was going to be very impressed that you found an intern and surprised that you narrowly focused them exclusively on YouTube.
Just only YouTube, yeah. Wait, I had them for 20 minutes a week and I'm paying them a lot.
Tommy, what does the survey say about YouTube interns? Are they usually a 20-minute a week intern?
That seems to be the case. Yeah. Shout out, by the way, we've got folks from Sydney in the house. Like it's it's early for you guys. So thank you.
People are in all the time zones. And if you are new to a SparkToro office hours, you may know that we usually spend traditionally the first 5 to 7 minutes in a sort of warm-up phase, which is to allow folks whose clocks might be a little bit slower or who might be leaving another meeting before joining this for exactly, Zoe, the banter, which this week, due to existential dread, we will not be discussing current events. But maybe if we survive the next few years, we can do that. So, yeah, let's see. How about we do something joyful? Do you want to see the progress of the video game?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Let's do that. Okay, you guys.
For folks who don't know, I run another company. It is called Snack Bar Studio. And last week we had our in-person team meeting in Puglia, which is like the heel of the boot of Italy. And our art director showed off some new stuff, and our game designer showed off some new sequences. So let me see. I'm gonna share my screen. This is gonna take like 6 seconds, and then we're gonna. Oh, that didn't do it. I don't want to be one of those people who's like, Goldcast keeps changing how everything works, but Goldcast does keep changing how everything works. All right, here we go.
Running a video game company, by the way, is super cool.
Oh, thanks. Yeah.
I want to do that when I grow up.
Me too. All right, here we go. We're gonna full screen this and we're gonna play. So you in this video game, you play a chef in a magical version of 1960s Italy, and you fight monsters and gather ingredients in the magical wilds. This is modeled on Val d'Orcia, which is on the border between Umbria and Tuscany. Oh, there you can see our game designer, Nico, and our art director, Francesco, and our lead developer, Miriam and Geraldine. And then you bring the ingredients back to your restaurant and cook up recipes. And the combat loop has gotten really quite nice the last little while. And we got some great QA feedback. Here's the, let's see if I can do the, oh yeah, here's the town that Francesco models. He basically takes photos from real Italian towns and then just models them and illustrates them first in 3D, then in a 2D layer. And so you can see all these different elements, sort of 60s vibe there. Anyway, pretty fun, kind of great.
Beautiful art design.
Yeah, having tons of fun with that. So there you go.
Super cool.
Something good in this cruel world.
We should start a waitlist page for your game.
There's already one. It's at snackbarstudio.com.
Oh.
Yep. I think snackbarstudio.com. There you go. Boom. Ta-da. Anyway, nice. Tommy, tell us what the webinar today is going to be about. I'm very excited to hear this.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about the state of discontent. There was a lot happening in the content marketing space. I've been in this space for about 20 years now, and this was the first time in the last couple of years, really. There have been 400,000 plus tech layoffs. We've seen the rise of AI. ChatGPT was put out there almost 2 years ago now. And there's been a lot of existential crisis that I've noticed out in this space. And as somebody who's been a longtime practitioner, I've never seen anything like this before. And as a result of that, I said, I want to quantify what's happening out in the space right now, to really bring together what that discontent is, and ultimately help a lot of people who I've talked to feel like let them know that they weren't alone in everything that's been going on. And we put the survey out. We had a phenomenal response from the survey. We had, I think, 545 submissions. The amount of questions that we asked was above average. We asked anywhere between 20 to 25 questions, depending on what segment we were in. It was a 21-minute completion rate and about a 41.7%. 21-minute completion time and a 41.7% completion rate, which is like massive for.
That's people spending a lot of time on a survey. Like you said, how many people?
545.
545. Yeah. Amazing. I mean, that's really remarkable. Is it, what's the country coverage like?
It's worldwide.
Worldwide.
Okay. So there was a good percentage. There was a good percentage of the U.S. like you would expect, and then a lot of the freelancer population came from a lot of Indian and Nigerian countries, but all over the place. It was really cool to see the widespread plus, and we'll see this when we look at the demographics that came in here, plus a really decent spread of in-house freelance agency and consultants. So we had this like really, really comprehensive cross-section of where people were coming from, and all levels of experience too. So yeah.
Nice. Cool. Amanda, for folks who are unfamiliar with SparkToro office hours, where should they leave Q&A? How will they get the recording after? And what is protocol for the chat during the presentation?
All right. Thank you for asking. Friends, you can expect an email that will come in several hours that has a link to this recording, hopefully the slides, if Tommy lets me share the slides. And a link to the survey itself. It's like over 200 pages of great data that Tommy spent a lot of time really parsing through and presenting in a really nice, clean way. So definitely worth the read even after this presentation. As far as questions go, you can drop questions in the Q&A box. Over towards on the right at the top, you'll see a chat, messages, Q&A. Drop your questions in the Q&A so that other people can see the questions and potentially upvote the questions they also wanted to ask. That just helps us prioritize during the Q&A portion. Aside from that, do please add your reactions, notes to the chat. We do look at this, and it also just, helps us all stay networked, stay together. I think I've covered it all.
Amazing. I think the only thing left to do is to introduce our fine guest, Tommy Walker, who's the founder of the Content Studio. And Tommy, my understanding, you, in addition to producing amazing reports like this, also help folks with content consulting. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. And part of the reason why this report exists was I had launched a cohort earlier this year of my new signature course, and it didn't do as well as I would have liked. And the reason for that was I didn't run through my own process. So this was also a byproduct of running through that process, and seeing the results that came from it is just a huge validation and testament for myself. So, yeah. So
what are you saying about cobbler's children? Are you indicating that perhaps their footwear is lacking?
Exactly. And the major thing was going I can't see the label from inside the bottle. So that doing the retrospective afterwards was telling. So yeah.
I feel quite is chuffed the word? I don't know if that's the right word. That Amanda, that you and I and Casey did our audience research over the last 60, 90 days by sending out surveys and doing a bunch of interviews and running a bunch of SparkToro reports on our peeps. And I think that it's actually quite useful. Anyway, without further ado, Tommy, would you kick us off? I am going to go off stage and let you and Amanda take it from here. And thank you so much for joining us. And thanks to everybody here for joining also. I think this is going to be absolutely fascinating.
All right, let's get into it. I love this. I love everything that's going on here. So, like I said, I'm Tommy Walker. I'm the founder of the Content Studio. My consultancy works with Fortune 1000 companies and mid-market B2B SaaS startups. Before that, I was the first marketing hire at Shopify Plus, global editor-in-chief at QuickBooks, where I ran content for 16 markets globally. And since starting my consultancy, these are the fine companies that I've worked with. So it's been quite a career over the last 20 or so years. The major thing that I want to put out there with this report is that it should be noted that it could be biased, right? I have to put that disclaimer out there because the nature of the report saying state of discontent, you would think it'd be a lightning rod for a lot of negativity. However, we did see a lot of positive results that came from the report, and the focus is obviously going to be on the things that have people upset right now, but I think it's a really solid cross-section of what's happening in the emotional state within content marketers right now. So kind of talked about this a little bit earlier. I asked 545 people earlier this year, what has you feeling discontent? This is what the cross-section looked like of our respondents. Collection of in-house, freelance agencies, and consultants. As we go through the report, I do group everybody else. We have in-house and then service providers that help sort of keep the data a little bit more pure. And there are a lot of similar challenges across those different groups. So that's one of the things to keep in mind. When we were looking at the in-house employees, this was also something that was really important. I wanted to see what size of companies that people were working in, because those challenges can become unique across those different company sizes. So as we look at that and we go into the full report in this presentation, I don't dig into that as much, but in the full report, we break that down just a little bit further. And this was one of the first really telling things as we started to dig into the data here, right? How many people are dedicated to content marketing? 0 people to 1 people is the second highest result here, and then anywhere between 2 to 5 people. This is across all company sizes. So companies that have 1 to 5 people, like SparkToro here, all the way up to 1,000 plus employees. The majority of companies have anywhere between 0 to 5 people dedicated to content marketing, which plays a huge role, a massive role in how people are responding and the challenges that are happening across the board. We also looked at the years of experience within content marketing. This was really interesting to me because We can see here the majority of folks anywhere between 3 to 20 years, which was really cool. As I was thinking about this more from my own experience perspective, what's been really fascinating to see is the world that the more junior or inexperienced folks, inexperienced, 5 years is not inexperienced, but newer folks to this field, it's been a completely different game than the world that I grew up in, and I know certainly Rand and Amanda grew up in. Completely different space. What I found was that the definition of content marketing has changed dramatically over the years, especially since around 2014 when Google introduced featured snippets and the skyscraper technique was one of the things that took off. That definition plays a huge role overall. And again, when we were doing the survey, I wanted to make sure, this is to show you that we had in-house people and service providers. We segmented out the questions just so we could get very clean data on these folks. And because the challenges are slightly different for those two groups, I wanted to make sure that we had very clean data on what those questions were asked and the answers that we got. So the good news is, right, I don't want to focus on all negative here. We have some really good news. The majority of folks are satisfied with their compensation, right? We can see a pretty good satisfaction here. There's a lot more satisfaction amongst in-house employees. Totally makes sense. Health benefits are a very nice thing. 401ks, I know I miss mine, but you know, it's a pretty good thing. What's also really interesting about this is that the very satisfied at the very top there, we see a lot more service providers answering that they're very satisfied. And then they also kind of, as we start to go down the scale here, they become a little bit more neutral to dissatisfied. And my thought on that was the very satisfied in the service provider space, it's a very high risk, high reward type scenario. So we see a lot more as we drill further into the data. It's the consultants that really make those numbers up a little bit higher. They're the ones that boost up the very satisfied. But that makes a lot of sense to me, at least when we start looking at that.
Just to be super clear, service providers, that's agencies, consultants,
are mostly bought in or extremely bought into marketing programs. This does come with a very significant asterisk attached to it, but what that makes me see right here is that the thing that makes me happy is if I had run this report 10 years ago, we
Tommy, can you hear us?
Or indifference or skepticism overall. And now this just means to me that we're on pretty much the right side of the adoption curve. Rand, Amanda, I see you waving over here.
Yeah, can you hear us?
I cannot hear you. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
You can hear me. Okay. Cool. Hold on. I know what happened here. So give me just a moment. My earbuds. There we go. It just decided to disconnect. Talk to me now?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Amazing.
Okay.
I had a quick question on service providers. So I just want to be clear, service providers means agencies, consultants. Is that right?
Yep,
Was there anyone else?
Yep, and freelance writers.
Oh, I think your microphone has gone haywire.
Of course. Let's see.
Yeah,
benefits.
I think what Roxine said is correct. Your mic has switched to the earbuds.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you should be able to hear me better now, right? All right. Cool.
Beautiful.
I don't know why. I'm going to put the earbuds back in their case. I don't know why it all switched like that, but used to all the technical glitches from running my own live stream. So hopefully we're good from now. Yeah. All right.
It's showbiz, baby.
By the way, Tommy, are we going to get to see the distribution of those salaries in a second here?
No, but that is in the. I believe that's in the full report.
Okay. Cool.
So, cool. Did I cut out at any given point in time here?
Nope.
Okay, cool.
All good.
So this means that we're on the right side of the adoption curve overall. Rand, Amanda, you've been doing this for a long time. Would you kind of agree with that sentiment that maybe 10 years ago this would have felt very, very different?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so.
Which part exactly?
The leadership buy-in of content marketing.
Man, tough to say. 10 years ago, I feel like the companies that I knew were quite bought in. It almost feels like they've been disconnecting a little. But maybe 5 years before that, barely anyone was bought in because it was so new.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I'm just really pleased to see what we're looking at for the adoption curve. Again, this comes with a very significant asterisk that we'll dig into in just a little bit here.
Cool.
Well, I do think in 2014, right, 10 years ago, I think content was a lot more narrow. Like it was a lot of like, it's the blog.
Yeah.
Sometimes we do white papers and there's this thing called podcasting. Have you heard of that?
Right.
And forget YouTube, right? The only people on YouTube were the weirdos who were publishing every single day who are now, laughing at us because they're multimillionaires.
Exactly. And yeah, maybe webinars was a thing that we would do sometimes, but definitely not for marketing purposes back in the day. Cool. All right, let's move on. Again, also just over half of content marketers report having positive or very positive collaborations efforts within their organization. In the full report, this actually breaks down very differently across the different leadership buy-in levels. So that's been a really interesting thing to see how that changes different again across the leadership buy-in. But overall, when we look at all the data in aggregate, it's nice to see that we're on the collaboration level. Again, too, this was something that was really surprising to me. The majority of the sentiment around AI was neutral or positive. From the perspective of a lot of folks, the whole outcome or what's going to happen in the next few years, because one of the questions was, given the rise of ChatGPT over the last few years, what role do you think AI is going to play in the next 5? A good percentage of people were saying, it's a tool, it's a productivity tool, it's something that works for me. I'm not relying on it too heavily to do the writing. So that was really cool. And also, here we can see it's right. Increased productivity, reduced manual effort, faster content creation, right? The sentiment is genuinely positive around the usage. But here's the thing, is the negative feedback that we saw is really valid and should not be ignored. So AI will be taking content, AI will be creating content for companies. It will take jobs away from writers. We can see it's got inaccurate information, loss of originality, decreased content quality. And as I've been thinking about this a little bit more, right, I've given this presentation kind of some variations of it. The last time I didn't really think about this a little bit more. I think one of the biggest problems and the reason why this has become an existential threat for a lot of folks is that for years, content marketing has been about relaying information and not communicating ideas, right? And this is something that, I know you guys have been talking about in some way, shape, or form for a little while. And now the unit economics of AI make way too much sense for a business leader's perspective, right? If you're paying $20 a month or $40 a month or $50 to $60 a month versus $1,000 per article, right, or up to $1,000 per article, the unit economics make too much sense, especially if your content programs have been based on relaying information instead of communicating ideas. So I think part of the underlying thing of the existential threat is that, and what we see, and I don't have it in this presentation, but what we see too is a lot of the threat that's come to folks is a lot of folks who have more unstable incomes and less satisfaction with their career and creativity. So that's where a lot of the negativity is starting to come in around that sentiment around AI. So just kind of something to think about there. And this is one of the biggest things. This is why I think that fact is so quantified, right? Or so valid, is that the majority of folks are saying that they are either not sure or unconfident about how their content would stand out on voice and tone alone, right? There is a number of factors that go into this. Some of them are skill, some of them are being held back by external circumstances. And then a good portion of it is being told or raised in this world of content marketing being defined a certain way, right? Like skyscraper type technique, do something that's marginally better, or what's been misinterpreted as doing something marginally better than what else is going on in the search results, is a lot of the definition of what content marketing is. And there have been people who have come up in their career with that concept. And that's stuff that I've seen in the data, but it's also stuff that I've seen anecdotally. So this unsure or unconfident, I think, plays a role in that. And we see definitely a lot more threat of AI in the unsure area than we do in the other areas. And there's a lot more that's connected to that we'll dig into in just a second here. You guys want to say anything about that? Do you have any thoughts there?
Oh, I have been chatting like a madman. Yes. I mean, look, I don't think, I think that AI is a highly useful tool to assist, as a bunch of people have noted in the comments, but I think if you are using it for creation and publishing it with minor edits and reviews, either you have the least picky content consumer on the planet,
Right.
or you are fooling yourself in thinking that producing content has been the problem. Producing content hasn't been the problem for, a decade and a half. Like the production was not the problem. It was how do I earn an audience that cares about consuming the content and takes action based on that. And that is a problem that AI does not solve.
Right. And it doesn't solve that whole relaying information versus communicating ideas thing. And when we start to look a little bit further into the buy-in side, that's one of the big things that starts to come into play, right? Based on leadership buy-in, which we'll get there. All right. This is also the three biggest challenges when it comes to content creation. These are very related, right? Differentiating content, creating the right content for our audience, and creating quality content. Three big challenges that's on a lot of people's minds. Now, this was a ranked, what's interesting about this is that this was a ranked question. So the majority of people were answering that in this order, which again, in the full survey, this does differ based on the level of leadership buy-in. And more importantly, the amount of audience research that people are doing, which we'll dig into that a little bit further. Career satisfaction also, right? The majority of folks, whether you're a service provider or not, are having complicated relationships with their career. There's a lot that's involved there. So, and then here, the not so good news, when we look at that levels of buy-in, leadership buy-in, again, that mostly bought in, the big asterisk that comes along with that, which I've been talking about, is to the extent of which my leadership understands content marketing or how they define content marketing. Huge asterisks, and it plays a massive role in when we start cross-analyzing the data. Creative satisfaction with the work that they're doing on a daily basis, compensation, career, right? Across all things, that plays a huge role. And then this is one of my favorite quotes from the entire report from the qualitative data. If Sisyphus was a content marketer, he'd be doomed to re-optimize the same basic blog post over and over again for an eternity and be forced to reshare to an audience that doesn't care. Right? I think that perfectly captures the sentiment for a lot of folks. And it's one of the more PG answers that we got from the qualitative feedback. People went off when we asked, what do you think has people discontent right now? And again, this is how confident are you? Would you be on your content standing out on voice and tone alone? We started to break this down across leadership buy-in because that plays such a significant role. And we can see here that the extremely bought in folks, they're a lot more confident than the folks who don't see the point at all, right? Again, there's some really serious relationships between this and other parts of the data, but the confidence in voice and tone to see how that reflects across the extremely bought-in leadership group versus everybody else is really fascinating to dig into. Non-creation challenges, lack of resource, unsurprising. Accessing subject matter experts, workflow approvals, and aligning content efforts across multiple teams. This actually conflicts a little bit with some of the other data that we saw. But this is really interesting to what's happening on the day-to-day basis for folks. And then this is the really bad news, right? The majority of folks are having complicated relationships with the work that they're producing. And again, that plays a huge role. That's with what they're being told, or the understanding of which leadership has of content marketing. Maybe something gets produced well, right? It performs well, but it's not exactly the type of thing that they would want to. Maybe they're not feeling like they're creating the best content for their audience. Are they questioning whether or not the stuff they're creating is actual quality? Is it standing out? Are they being leveraged to the maximum? That's why I think we see a lot of answers in the it's complicated. And again, the majority of people, this made me really sad, are not creatively fulfilled. So some people said, and this was really interesting, some people said that it's not my job's, job to make me creatively fulfilled. But the caveat to that was plenty of people were also saying something to the extent of, by the time I am done with my work, I don't have any creativity for myself. It's just a void. So even though I'm not creatively satisfied, I don't have time or energy for my own creativity.
Did that differ? I'm curious, like for the yes and no's, were there any differences between like B2C marketers versus B2B marketers?
Oh yeah.
The majority of the folks were B2B. So that's a really good question. And next time we run the survey, I'm going to do a differentiation between those two things and try to get more distribution into the B2C community. But because the majority of this was just the audience selection was B2B.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah. So, but you would think there's some opportunity there. And further down too, there is a really interesting breakdown in the full report of even what that extremely bought-in leadership does. We cross-analyze extremely bought-in leadership versus are you creatively fulfilled and formats that are being leveraged. There's some really interesting insights there as to how people are feeling creatively fulfilled. And then this is the one that I think is the most relevant for the SparkToro community. The majority of content marketers are saying they're not doing their audience research nearly enough.
I mean, it does take like 7 seconds to, fill in the form field of a SparkToro search. No. And in fairness, if you think that is enough audience research, you're probably in the not nearly enough group. But
I have some theories on why this is, though, right? I've got 3 hypotheses on this. One, there isn't enough time, right? We did see that the majority of teams have 0 to 5 people dedicated to content marketing. So and more importantly, they're managing on an average about 5 formats, which is huge, right? There's a lot of burnout there. So that makes a huge difference.
What I can't believe, Tommy, from that slide is the breakdown barely changes whether you're 1 person or 10 plus people.
Yeah.
That is brutal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those
and the 0 to 1 people teams.
Yeah, and the level of burnout that happens, because this doesn't, to add the dimension of company size across this as well, like to have 0 to 5 people dedicated to content marketing in a 1,000+ organization. And in some cases, like I know for a very long time when I was at Shopify Plus, I was the only person there dedicated to it, all the way up to the first 315 employees. right? And even then I worked with freelancers, but I'm still the only one managing all of the influx of requests that are coming in, all of the case studies, like getting all of that stuff set up. And what I think part of that is happening is that the creativity aspect of that, but also the satisfaction with work. Like, how are you possibly going to be satisfied with the type of work that you're doing if you're managing 5 or 6 different streams all at once, 5 or 6 different formats? Are you doing any of those to their maximum ability, or are you dedicating 15 minutes a week being the intern to YouTube, right? Are you able to do those things as well as you would like to do? And I think that plays a huge role, right, overall. And I would love to see kind of what the chat is saying about that. If you guys want to kind of pull that up, or that would be great.
Yeah, a lot of people are talking about like creativity, creative practices, availability of time, like less to do with the amount of available time and with the general doubtfulness that the research will generate useful insights. Thank you for that, Zach. Yeah.
Well, and that kind of plays a role into the next two, my next two hypotheses, right? It's not a priority, right? We're seeing that leadership, I see this in the qualitative feedback, that leadership's not prioritizing it. In fact, in some cases are actively discouraging folks from talking to customers or taking the time to do it. And it's unfortunate, right? Like, there's so much good stuff that can come from really solid audience research, which we talk about a lot more in the report. Like, across every vector of the survey, there's increased satisfaction with voice and tone. There's increased satisfaction with creativity, career, compensation, because it plays a huge role. But what I think ends up happening when it's not a priority is that content marketers, from a career standpoint, aren't able to make defensible cases for the big swing ideas that they want to do, or the more creative ideas that they want to put out there. And it just perpetuates this cycle of not being able to like do things that they know could move the needle, but also it leads to an atrophy in creativity, right? Creativity is a muscle.
Atrophy in creativity. That's beautifully said.
Right? Like, creativity is a muscle, and you guys, I mean, SparkToro is a relatively small company, right? So you get to do things that are really cool, and you rely on your creativity and your ability to storytell to differentiate from the rest of the market. And that's what I think makes it so you can disrupt this space in particular. But if you're a small team and you're a small company and allergic to talking to customers at the very least, then it makes it very difficult to stand out overall. So we just get into this cycle of produce to what end?
Well, and I'd be really curious, if we were to, I mean, this is part of audience research, right? You do surveys, and then you also do, if you can do interviews, right, with individual people to find out. But I have a strong suspicion that many people do content marketing as part of a very specific workflow that is, here are keywords that we want to rank for. Go make content that targets those keywords. Try to get rankings for them. And content marketing has to be bigger than SEO, but it, frustratingly, I think for a ton of people in the industry, they're still stuck on that particular treadmill, and that one way of getting sort of value from their content. And it's just,
well, and that's part of it, right? That's part of what the overall discontent was when I started looking at a lot more of the qualitative data, and just conversations I've had with folks after the surveys or the reports launched, is that, going back to that asterisk, content marketing is defined by my leadership. I can do so much as what my leadership believes it is. Beyond that, what goes a step beyond that is content marketers are going, search isn't working as much as it was anymore. It's not driving the same results as the playbook that we've been following for the last 10 years. So like, if you want me to drive results, I need to do cool stuff, but now I don't have the time to do the audience research. So I can't show you what that cool stuff is, make a defensible case. So it just becomes this huge downward spiral. So therefore, I'm not satisfied with my creativity, my career. I'm not getting compensated what I want, like, so forth and so on. So I can't bring people to the higher level of buy-in because I'm not allowed to do it.
I mean, my core thesis is that, essentially, content marketing and content strategy and creation should be 100% how do I get the right message in front of the right people in the right places at the right time?
Right.
And unfortunately, that is not how, a huge majority of organizations, especially in digital world, think about content. They think about it as, how do I rank for keywords? And then when they're faced
Right.
with, okay, well, let's say I want to think about it your way, they're like, well, what metrics would I use? And they've been trained and told that the vanity metrics of like impressions and reach and followers and subscribers are not dollars in. And if I can't see dollars connected to content in my analytics, I'm not investing in it.
Right.
It's
Right.
just, it's so frustrating. And yeah, I think that if I had to make a guess, that would be my hypothesis about why this is not a priority.
Sonia says something here that's really interesting, is the keyword research, and this is part of what I teach, right? It's where to go. The keyword research can help understand what are people actually searching for, but it doesn't get into what will make the difference. One of the things that I teach is, I come from an acting background before I ever got into marketing, and one of the things that famous acting instructor Konstantin Stanislavski would talk about in character development is the difference between a character's want and a character's need. So a want is something that is intrinsically motivated or extrinsically motivated, specific to the character, known to them, and is what drives them through their plot, right? In our world, that's keyword research, that's audience sentiment, that's a lot of what we can see, the qualitative data or the quantitative data that we can gather out there, right? But the need is something that's very different. It's intrinsically motivated. It's often unknown or ignored by the character. It drives them through their arc, and it's a universal lesson that they need to learn. And what we see in a lot of content, specifically, if it's even delivering on what that basic want is it's not going a level deeper to address those things that they didn't know that they needed, right? And that can be anything in the form of like, here's that thing you didn't like. If you're a landing page, A/B testing software, right? You might say, a landing page needs a headline and body copy and hero image, right? I use this because it's like a rite of passage for a lot of marketers who talk about marketing. But what they might not say is nobody's going to agree on any of this stuff, right? And as somebody who is looking for this, that's what adds just an extra layer of depth. And that's not something that we're doing because, again, it goes back to the audience research. If you don't know that people need to know that, and you're not making that assertion, right, then how is that content supposed to connect on any level that's beyond just the surface, right? And why do I even have a reason to come back to you, right, when it comes to that? Anyways, I see that we're ending.
I just think, the way I think about it is that search is like 10% of what happens, and 90% of what happens is everything else that you consume outside of search.
Right.
And content should and can reach people in those 90% of other places, not just after they've hit the go button on Google.
Yeah, exactly. And, we want to give people a reason to click deeper into our stuff, right? Like, and if we're not delivering on those needs, there's never a reason to click deeper, return, have that type in traffic, like any of that other stuff, which is, the drum that you guys have been banging on for quite a while now. Okay, so I see that we only have about 15 minutes left. I have a whole bunch of extra stuff here. If anybody wants to go over, if they can go over, happy to do so. If we want to keep it tight and concise, then we can do that as well. My third hypothesis, and this is probably one of the most important ones, there isn't proper training. Most people who got into content marketing did not say, I want to be a content marketer when I grow up. I don't know a single marketer who was like, this is what I want to do for a living. For me, like I said, I came from an acting background. I know a lot of journalists. I know poets who got into this. So doing that audience research, one, what does that even mean? Are there even frameworks out there for doing that? By the way, here's my pitch. I've got an 8-layer market research framework that I put out there that kind of shows a very 360-degree view of what's happening in a space, starting with your company and going all the way up to the highest level. But doing that research in the first place, how do you do that is one skill all unto itself. But then the other side of that is applying that research, right? Like I know, that you can see all the distribution touch points in the world about, like even using SparkToro, you can find all the places that people are spending their time, and that's great. But how do you dissect the information that you find on those pages? Are there any ways? And the answer is yes. But are there any ways to take what it is about those sites that are standing out to your market and pull that stuff out to take the bits that work for them and apply it to your work as well to make it also stand out, right? There's just not a lot of proper training out there on how to do that. And I think that part's really important, right? So true. I was an engineer before I got into marketing, definitely a different type of training. Exactly. And you can see here, right, from the qualitative data, right? I wonder what having research metrics would do for us. One person said their audience research is their intuition. Not much. I've built a general understanding over time, but it's not formal, right? So the process of even defining what audience research is, first and foremost, but then second, applying that information is hugely important and something that I feel like is really lacking. So what has content marketers feeling discontent, right? We did a linguistics analysis of 452,000 words of qualitative feedback. And this is what it broke down to, right? Career, management, and the economy. Economic downturn, this is something that's definitely been on a lot of people's minds, right? Economic upheaval, uncertainty, layoffs, general anxiety.
What was the time period for this?
We ran the survey in July.
Of this year?
Of this year.
What?
Yeah.
Isn't the last year of economic growth like one of the best in the last 50 or 70? I don't know. Who knows? Whatever. Okay. Interesting.
This was one of the biggest things, right? Right here, payments dropped or on hold, way overdue payments. We're seeing that. Budget cuts. Initially, my contracts would go on for years, but with the unexpected budget cuts, marketing, re-strategizing, and sudden layoffs, it's utterly chaotic. And like I said earlier, there's been 452,000, I think, or 400 something thousand layoffs that have happened in the last 2 years in the tech space. Plays a huge role in that. Frequent layoffs, right? Again, content marketers are not clear about what the future looks like, job security, opportunities, growth opportunities, no clear-cut structure, right? And then the last part here is the job market as a whole. So what I'm not showing here is that whole conversation of like, I'm not allowed to do the things that I know will move the needle. My leadership's understanding of content marketing is a certain way. I'm stuck inside this box. AI is coming for my job right now because leadership believes that they can do the same thing. And more importantly, what's really got me going right now is that if I get fired, there's no place for me to go. Right. So there's a lot of folks who, especially those who are making more money, have this golden handcuffs effect where they're like, I'm not doing the work that's creatively satisfying. I'm not doing stuff that I like, but I'm not going anywhere because there's no place for me to jump to.
One thing that's absolutely true is for the previous 20 years, digital marketing was growing so fast and obviously meteorically sort of during the pandemic that I think the slowdown of growth feels like a decline.
Yeah.
Right. So even if it's like, oh, this industry has far more people employed, there's way more money being spent, salaries are way higher than 10 years ago, but they're not growing as fast as they were.
Right.
And so it feels like a slowdown. Yeah.
Right. And there's always been this sense too of like career ceiling, right? There's no chief content officer in a lot of companies. So where do I even go past director level? Right. So there's that sense too of like, where am I even going to go if I do well? So that's been one of the major
obviously
things.
I think one of the other things that happened for sure is, especially on agency and consultant side, is that there were just way too many. Like so many people opened their own agency over the past decade in digital marketing, and demand and supply got out of whack. Right. So
And that was one of the things that we saw too, is like some people were mentioning that there was bloat with the amount of freelancers and consultants that were out there.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
even
the
if there is a
beautiful
full-time
thing-
job, people are filling in those gaps.
Yeah. The beautiful thing about digital marketing is there's very few barriers to entry. If you're
Right.
good at the work and you can find work, you can apply, right? Like nobody in our field checks like, oh, do you have this diploma and this certification and that kind of thing. Like, it's just an extremely open field compared to other industries and fields. And as a result, I think it flooded as it grew, which is wonderful. Yeah. Like, I think it's great that so many people are exposed to it, but also
as a service provider, I would agree with that. As somebody who tried to get a full-time job after a layoff, I don't make it past screening softwares for HR because on paper, I don't have a four-year bachelor degree. Like, I have an acting certificate, right? So that plays a huge role.
I have great news. They don't check. I'm just saying, right?
True.
Like,
it's true.
I've seen so many. Like, I don't know who needs to hear this, but like, nobody checks your degree. I have talked to tons of college admissions folks who are like, what's weird? Back in the 20th century, people used to call and see if so-and-so had graduated. That's never happened anymore.
Yeah. If you can make it past the AI software, you're like, don't. I can't encourage lying, but if you do, they're not going to check. So yeah.
I mean, go take 2 classes, mark that you went to that university on your LinkedIn. You're good.
Yeah. Plus, you have the whole like 5 years experience with 2 years with some of the stuff. Like, you want 20 years of experience in something that most don't have. So there is hope, though, even though there are challenges. We're at a point where content marketing can really evolve. Many companies are realizing that content isn't just about churning articles. It's about building relationships, driving meaningful engagement, and contributing to long-term business goals, right? So there is a sentiment that's changing right now. There are groups of businesses who are going, maybe AI is not the way to go. We tried it for a short period of time, but now we need to start focusing on craft. So that is starting to change a little bit. And I think that is a good sentiment of that. If we can go over, I've got some more breakdown on the management side and how that plays a role. But if we want to keep it at the 5,
let's go one more section and then we can do Q&A.
All right.
5 minutes from now.
Sounds good. All right. So we wanted to look at all of these high level pieces of feedback, right, and see how that played a role with different levels of buy-in with management. We dig into each individual levels of buy-in with management in the report, but this is kind of the high-level stuff, right? So again, this comes with the asterisk. We're on the right side of the adoption curve, but mostly bought in means that it's to the extent that leadership defines content marketing for themselves. We can see here across the different company sizes what that level of buy-in starts to look like. Across in bigger companies, we start to see lower levels of buy-in.
That's wild. It like declines from micro to small to medium, and then boom, big jump at large.
Yeah. And I mean, the major part of that, I think, is just the understanding, right? There's a highest level of skepticism is inside the large organizations. And I know this having worked in a multinational, it's that whole idea of, is content marketing effective? You're telling me it's going to take me 6 months to see results, right? Versus I've got a multi-million-dollar ad campaign. Let me just run ads and spend $5 and get $10 back, right? So that level of skepticism is completely justified from the companies who have the large ad budgets to put out there. So that becomes a much harder way to make your case, right? And I've been in this field. I was in a meeting where I was working on the global brand team, and we were just introducing the concept of content marketing to the whole division. And my boss had put out there, he did a little survey of like, guess how many people click on organic links in the search results, right? And it was like 80%, 50%, or 20%. And everybody picked the 20% of people clicking on organic links, right? They thought that the majority of people clicked on the paid ads, and that's because that was what their understanding of search was, completely ignoring, and this is the interesting part, completely ignoring what their own behaviors are.
Right. I
searchers.
never click on the paid ads, but I'm the exception. Everybody
Right.
else, they click on paid ads.
Right. Our customers all click on the paid ads. So it's really interesting.
I click on the
especially in
paid
large-
ads of any competitors.
Yeah, me too. Let me just run up your ad spend.
Oh my God. Have
Yeah,
you
or
Googled
like brands I don't
SparkToro
like.
lately? Like Google is putting like 5 ads above the fold for companies that do not compete with us at all. And I feel so bad for all of their poor paid ad managers, because anybody who's looking for SparkToro is going to be so disappointed by all those ads. Ooh.
Oh man. So yeah, I mean, that's one of the biggest things is when we see the skepticism overall and the indifference within those larger organizations. That's primarily, like, anecdotally speaking, that's been my experience, is that there are just better ways to drive direct ROI. And again, we live in this world of, and Rand, I know you've talked about this, Amanda, I know you've talked about this too, where it's like we've grown up in this area where everything can be measured, and we've almost become too reliant on that, and that plays into this entire thing that we've been talking about. So compensation, right? We could see, don't see the point at all. That's the highest amount of completely dissatisfied people with their compensation. And we can see the dissatisfaction goes up as the leadership buy-in goes down, right?
I mean, it sucks to work anywhere where your boss doesn't believe in what you're doing. Like,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Creative satisfaction across the board. Everybody still has mostly complicated relationships with their career satisfaction. But of course, the people who are working under extremely bought-in leaderships, they have the highest level of career satisfaction. Again, that goes down. Everybody who their leaders said they don't see the point at all said, no, there was no positivity there. Makes sense. And then this was the creative fulfillment across all leadership levels of buy-in. We can see here that it's almost a completely inverse response, right? Leadership buy-in level, they are creatively satisfied. On the extremely bought-in, they're not here. The don't see the point at all. This was a really interesting thing. This was the group of people who were saying, mostly it's not my job to make me feel creatively satisfied. I find other outlets. So I was like, oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
AI impact on expectations, right? On the output, we see there's significant increase, or there's no change with the extremely bought-in leaders. But there is still, they also have one of the significantly increased, and it's very similar to the indifferent. What was interesting to that, as we dug into the qualitative data on that, was that the extremely bought-in has higher levels of significant increase because they're trying to stay ahead of the curve, whereas the indifferent ones are trying to catch up, right? So same level of expectation on output for completely different reasons, because also with the indifferent side, we see this as we dig deeper into the data. They also prioritize volume over creativity, right? Because they come from this world of the idea that publishing more is what's going to get you the search results and all of that. They have that perception of that's what content marketing is: high volume versus high quality, right?
Yeah.
So
Tommy, do you have a few minutes to stick around and do some Q&A with us?
Of course. This is the last one. This is actually the most important one. The audience research role in buy-in, right? The extremely bought-in group, they're the ones doing audience research at the highest level. Not nearly enough. I actually don't even have them on here because they all reported that they're not doing their audience research nearly enough, right? So it's a chicken and egg scenario. Are they not getting buy-in because they're not doing their audience research, or are they not doing their audience research because they're not getting buy-in? That's hotly contested in the social media space when I put this information out there. But my thing as a career content marketer is that I shouldn't be asking for permission to do the research if I have the frameworks that the ones I've put in place that you can buy when you get to content theory, the 8-layer market research process, even if you don't have access to your customers, there are still other things that you can do for audience research to make your case to do deeper stuff, right? So that's one of the most fascinating ones to me is it that you're not getting the buy-in because you're not doing the research? That's the flag that, you know, I'm planting. I'm saying that. That's where I'm saying is that it's our job as the practitioners to do the work and then to make our cases. I don't want to leave that into somebody else's hands.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I don't want to cut you off, but we are over time. And so we just have 3 questions that folks put in the Q&A, Tommy, that I would love to run by you and get your thoughts on.
Yeah.
If that is cool by you. And
yeah, let's do it.
So the first one comes from Roxy. How does audience research tie in tactically to the creation of content and getting leadership buy-in? Like when you advise or when you do content yourself, what sort of audience research are you tactically doing that gets people sort of either on board with it or gets better results from it?
Yeah. So the major thing is I've got, like I said, I've mentioned a few times, I have an 8-layer market research process that I go through. When I'm looking at outside sources, I'm following Aristotle's rhetoric to look at logos, pathos, and ethos of how are these people out there in the space looking at how are they appealing to logic, how are they appealing to authority, and how are they appealing to logic, authority, and emotions. And if I can pull those elements out and really dissect things through those individual lenses, then I'm trying to get a sense of why is this thing standing out to these people? Then I can codify that into my own sort of content marketing manifesto to then inform and be the underlying thing that goes into all of my creations. So like for my own personal content code, rule 3 is don't talk down to the reader. Right? Because I saw in the content marketing space, there were a lot of people talking down to readers and putting themselves up on this pedestal. Rule 4 is opinions are bullshit, do the research, right? And it's not just, you know, presenting the research, but also rule number 8 is tell a story, right? So how do we weave data point to, how do we tell a story from data point to data point and not just throw stats out there? So once we have the research and we have an understanding of how these different companies are appealing to logic, emotion, and authority, how can we take the best of what we see and then leverage their weaknesses to codify that to then become the underlying document of how we approach content across the board, not just for the people that are writing for us, but also any partners that we work with. And we have this really solid understanding of how we approach our market.
Weird question. Do you have like a blog post that, you know, details this, or like a newsletter edition or something like that, where you're like, yeah, here's how I use audience research to do this stuff?
I have a webinar that I put together that pitches my course. But yeah, it goes into all of that. The other part is I look at, once we have that research and we understand what's going on, also I'll look at the social media side of things. What are people saying over Reddit? What are like the places where people are hanging out? I use SparkToro for this a lot. When we know where people are hanging out on social media, can we start to dig into that? I look at 3 layers of conflict, right? So what's happening in the existential space, you know, authority, forces of nature, what's happening that we have no control over, what's happening on that personal level. So relationships with other people, in this case, the report was structured this way, relationships with leadership or coworkers or bosses, et cetera. And then our relationships with ourselves. If we can incorporate those 3 layers of conflict, this is something that we can start to really make pieces stand out a lot more. And this is across all types of content, not just blog posts, but also emails, videos, et cetera. Cool. So, and you can only get to that. You can only get to the good stuff there if you're doing the research and really understanding what it is, those levels of conflict that people have for themselves. Rand, you do this organically. I actually pull your stuff apart in one of my newsletters on how you approach this in your own writing. I don't know if you've ever studied this type of stuff, but
no, not at all.
but you do it organically, which I think is a big part of why your stuff resonates with so many people.
Oh, that's incredibly kind of you. So second question here, what level of experimentation and being allowed to fail is found based on the descriptions of broader buy-in? Like, is that something that the data exposes?
What level of experimentation is allowed to fail based on the descriptions of broader?
So sorry,
Yeah,
I think it is. What level of experimentation / being allowed to fail, right?
Yeah.
So like, how much are people allowed to experiment and fail based on how much buy-in there is?
Yeah, we didn't ask that question directly, but if I'm reading between the lines of what the survey results were saying, especially on the qualitative side, there's a lot more. I mean, the higher the buy-in, the more willing, the more experimentation is allowed, and margin for failure, right? It's like planned failure. I know that when I was at Shopify, one of the things culturally speaking, I don't know if it's like this now, but one of the things culturally speaking was they had very much a crawl, walk, run approach where it's like experiment, and if it works, then keep doing more. And if it doesn't work, then back off. But like they had
find something else. Yeah.
Right. They had hack days, right, where it was built into the culture of like, let's just build something out and see if it works. And some of their best products have come as a result of that. Shop Pay is one of the biggest ones that came out of that, which is like they changed how people pay for things over e-commerce. And that was a direct result of hack days. And that applies across the board. But I think that comes from leadership too, is that building a culture of experimentation is something that if I were to try to bridge the gap between content marketers here and leadership, that conversation about audience research, all of that, can we start to facilitate a conversation internally and have those show the rationale behind that? Now, one of the things that I try to teach too is how can we as content marketers try to hedge our bets against failure when we make those cases to leadership to do big swing ideas?
Yeah, right.
Because one of the things
you don't want to take a swing, get judged for it, and then never get to take another swing, and the pressure is on, and it's foolish, right? Because no one succeeds, almost no one succeeds on their first try.
Right.
You got to throw 7, 8, 10 ideas at the wall and see which ones stick before you can find something. And we have that too at SparkToro. Tommy, I apologize. You might have noticed folks need to drop off, and I think we're 10 minutes over. Amanda, do you want to close us out and tell folks next steps? And
yeah, thank you everyone for joining. Thank you, Tommy. Folks, if you want to rewatch this presentation, as soon as we're done here, you can refresh the page and it'll be available right here at this very link. And then keep an eye out for an email from me in a couple hours. I'll send through a link to the report and Tommy's information and his course if you're interested in taking it. And aside from that, we hope to see you again soon at our next office hours.
Thank you, everyone. That, Amanda?
Oh, I think we're planning to do one more. Yeah, we have one more by the end of the year. I forgot the time. And I closed all my apps, so I don't know. I don't have a calendar right now. But you know what?
It's in December. That's great. Yeah.
We
will see you all in December. Thank you everyone for coming. Tommy, this report was amazing. When I posted it on LinkedIn, people were losing their minds and downloading it like crazy. And I'm sure the folks who attended this really appreciate it and will check it out as well. Thank you for coming, spending your time putting together not only the report, but then this breakdown of it for Spark together.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, friends.
Thrilled. All right, take care.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.